You know, it's pretty wild to think that a business idea from the 1980s could be the secret weapon for some of today's most innovative companies. But it's true. A classic concept all about speed is more relevant than ever. But as you'll see, the race itself has totally changed.
I mean, get this. The leader of Apple, a company that pretty much defines cutting edge, hands out a book that's decades old. The fact that Tim Cook thinks this is required reading, well, that's a huge clue that there's something incredibly powerful and timeless inside its pages.
So that's really the big question we're tackling in this explainer. Why is this idea, born in a totally different era, so absolutely critical for survival and success right now? The answer, it turns out, reveals a massive shift in what it even means to be competitive.
Okay, let's dive right in. To really get where we're going, we first have to understand where this all started. See, the business world used to run on a pretty simple formula, but a new ingredient was about to come along and just blow the whole thing wide open.
For the longest time, the whole game was just about making the best product for the cheapest price. Simple enough, right? But then, some consultants from BCG noticed that Japanese companies were adding a third, game-changing variable into the mix: speed. They weren't just managing cost and quality anymore, they were managing time itself as a weapon. And look, this wasn't just some theory cooked up in a boardroom. Adding speed had this huge, measurable impact out in the real world. Let's look at some of the hard data that shows just how powerful this shift really was. Okay, check this out. The Japanese company produced way less volume, but it offered more than 3 times the variety of parts, all at pretty much half the cost. So how did they do that? By focusing on speed and flexible manufacturing, they completely rewrote the rulebook.
So the crucial takeaway here is that speed wasn't just about being faster. It set off this incredible chain reaction. Productivity shot up, customers were happier, and companies figured out they didn't have to choose between high quality and low cost anymore. Speed actually let them have both.
And here's a perfect example of what that looked like in the marketplace. While its main competitor, Yamaha, was rolling out 37 new models, Honda just flooded the market with 113. The companies that got on board with this philosophy of speed absolutely dominated their fields.
All right, so let's fast forward to today. The world has sped up in ways the original thinkers of time-based competition could have barely even imagined. And because of that acceleration, the old playbook, while still important, just isn't enough anymore.
I mean, the pace of change today is just relentless. New technologies pop up and take over. Economic power is shifting all over the globe, and business models that worked for decades can become totally obsolete, practically overnight. Just doing what you've always done, but a little bit faster, that's a recipe for disaster now.
And this quote, man, it just nails the spirit of this era. It's not about being the biggest anymore, it's about being the fastest. But, as we're about to see, the very definition of fast has changed.
This brings us to the absolute heart of this whole evolution. It's the critical difference between being agile, which is basically just being fast, and being truly adaptive, which is a whole new ballgame. The new battlefield. It's all about information. At their core, a lot of businesses today are actually information businesses. The new pace isn't just about making things faster. It's about operating at the speed of data itself, and that requires a complete rethink of how a company works.
So here's the key distinction. TBC 1.0, the original, was all about agility, doing the things you already do, just faster. TBC 2.0 is about adaptiveness. It's about learning how to do entirely new things faster and better than anyone else. It's about learning and evolving on the fly.
This chart really puts the why into perspective. Just look at the time it took for these technologies to hit 80% adoption. Landlines took 65 years, mobile phones 20, and smartphones just 8 years. That's insane. New technologies can rise up and dominate before you've even finished getting good at the old ones. You have to be able to adapt, not just speed up. Okay, so what does this new adaptive speed actually look like in practice? Let's check out 2 modern giants who have absolutely mastered this game of data, speed, and continuous learning.
You probably think of UPS as a delivery company, right? But really, they're an information business. They use data constantly, optimizing routes, making info simple for drivers, and building analytics that adapt in real time to get even faster and smarter. They are always learning.
And then you've got Alibaba. Just to wrap your head around this scale, they process over a petabyte of data every single day. To put that in perspective, that's like having all the DNA info of the entire US population times 3. This insane data firepower is the engine for their adaptiveness.
See, with all that data, Alibaba doesn't just sell things faster. They learn. They see a need for better payments, so they build Alipay. They see a need for data storage, so they build a cloud service. This is TBC 2.0 in action, using data and speed to constantly innovate and adapt your entire business model.
So, what's the big takeaway from all this? How can you actually apply these ideas? Well, this new competitive world demands a new playbook. And here are the 6 key rules for not just surviving, but thriving today.
The playbook has 6 main rules. First, you've got to start thinking of yourself as an information business and be able to respond at the speed of data. That means shifting your advantage away from just being big to being adaptive. You have to actively build a culture of rapid learning. And crucially, you have to balance running your current business with exploring what's next. And finally, you have to be willing to break free from the very things that made you successful yesterday.
Which leaves us with one last really important question to ask yourself. In this world of crazy acceleration, it's not enough to just run the same race faster than everyone else. The real question is, are you learning fast enough to change the race entirely?